Ah, smart water. Pure, crisp taste.
That's really good water.
It's the kind of water that says, I have my life together.
I do feel more sophisticated.
Smart water. For those with a taste for taste. Grab yours today.
So, we're going to start this over, Chris, because you went with, I got this crazy story about football at Tulane. I got a bullet in my liver. and I had to stop Chris and be like, I'm going to hit record now because we have to start this discussion. This is going to be the cold open, brother. Go.
Yeah. No, it's ESPN showed up and did a big article about it. And yeah, I have a 416 Rigby elephant gun bullet in my liver that they could not pull out. And my junior year in college playing football. So missed the last two games and most of that duck season, which I was more upset about.
You are tuned in to the Foul Weather Podcast, the forecast to your next successful hunt. Coming to you from the home office, Jack's Reef, New York.
All right, friends across Duck Country, USA, I am super stoked for today's guest. Chris Beckman of Beckman Game Calls joins us to talk the evolution of the cut down and how his advancements in design continue to revolutionize the duck call business. From the original Edison and the first adjustable cut down, the Groundbreaker, to the newest edition, the Wood line, which features African Blackwood and Cocobolo. Chris, I'm gonna get away a little bit from the total intro because I was talking with my wife the other day in the truck, and I'm like, hey, could you tell me there's like this name of a wood used for a duck call from Africa that I think everybody's been pronouncing wrong? Because I called it for years Coca-Cola. Mm-hmm. I ended it with an A, and I don't know if it's like a Southern accent thing that gives that O and A sound or what it is that y'all do, but it's technically Coca-Cola. Is that right, Chris? Or
you are correct, but you know, in the South, we like to create our own language down here.
And is that where it came from? Because that's what I said to my wife. I'm like, we live down there in Mississippi, and we heard all the different terminology, and Missouri is Missouri, and so on, right? So, and that's not even, I consider that like mid-latitude stuff, but.
Yes, the right pronunciation is Cocobolo, but we don't like to drag it out. We just shorten it, make it easy for.
Well, I appreciate that you're making. I'm going to keep calling it Coca-Cola because that's what my brain. That's what my brain says, and if I'm in a duck blind, that's what's coming out of my mouth. So, but this new wood line is African Blackwood and Coca-Cola. Those are available right now, Chris, online.
I'm actually sold out of most of it. I've got a few African Blackwoods left, but I'll be trying different woods. As you know, my design's a little different, so we'll get into that in a little bit. So it lets me play with different woods in this different calls. So
yes, sir. And Chris continues to crank out really great calls. In fact, Seth Fields, that's a name you will know, an accomplished contest caller, has won a few contests using the acrylic Edison from Beckman Game Calls. So I guess before we blow up Chris's ego too much, we'll let him introduce himself and tell us about his illustrious career as a football player / duck call maker and all that jazz. So Chris, welcome to the Foul Weather Podcast.
Thank you, Mike. I'm happy to be here.
So the background's fun for you as far as, your career and such. And I'm going to note to our listeners that we spent a lot of time on the phone lately. And I'd say you and I have become, as listeners will be able to tell throughout this interview and stuff, good friends, over the camaraderie of kind of duck calls and duck hunting that brings folks together. And you started out just having kind of the best questions about duck migration and duck ecology and duck biology. I don't know, be it migration season, nesting season, whenever, wherever. I can tell that you breathe and live for ducks. And I'm sure you'll have more burning questions for me in the future too. But let's start with a quick background about your entry into the duck world and then the duck call world. Kind of what's the evolution of Chris Beckman and then Beckman Game Calls at this point?
Yeah. Again, very happy to be here, Mike. And if it wasn't for guys like you that I have to put this plug in, I mean, devoting your life to this sport and this animal, I mean, it could be argued we wouldn't be able to hunt them if it wasn't for guys like you. So appreciate it from the, the research and the academia side background, to let us keep hunting. So,
Thank you. I
yeah.
appreciate that, because we do get that sentiment from folks, but it is nice to hear. I mean, I live on farmer hours and get up at 4 a.m. and do a lot of work before 8 o'clock, before a lot of people even, get out of bed. And I'm on the East Coast, so we're an hour ahead of you. So I got 5 hours of work in before a lot of people even get moving. And a lot of it is writing this stuff and getting it right for y'all and getting the information into your hands. So Thanks, Chris. Yeah. But at the same token, I've got a couple of your duck calls now, and man, the Edison I can blow. I'm learning the cut down. I'm learning the Groundbreaker, but that one's a tough one, and I think our listeners are going to learn a little bit more about it as we go here.
Yeah, it takes a little practice. So I'll give you a brief kind of bullet point history of how I got, I guess, obsessed with this sport and these animals. So when I was young, my dad was a trapper, and if you know any trappers, you know that they're very obsessed with figuring out the animal, patterning the animal, and ducks were no different for him. And sorry, my dog's barking. But
you're good. You're good.
But
it's all part of the authentic feel of the other podcasts. It's happened many times.
No, but he got me started, and he did it a little different than what the modern duck hunting is. He was more of he paddled around in a pirogue, so I cut my teeth in the front of a pirogue. He has a fun tagline where he says, "I think Child Protective Services would probably be called on me if they knew, how young you were out there and, in the cold winter months." So he put earmuffs on me, and he'd shoot ducks and let me pick them up off the water as we paddled around the backwaters of different river systems and WMAs. And that's kind of where I got hooked on duck hunting in general. But what got me really into the duck calls is, he blew an old mallard tone, and he had a huge box of calls that he had collected over the years from his dad, and other people, and Olds, and you may be familiar, Fox. There was his favorite, which he blew till he kind of quit hunting, was his mallard tone, and he loved that old wooden mallard tone. And so I saw him one day in the front of that pirogue blow at a group of ducks we had jumped, and they turned on a dime and came right back to him, and he shot one. And I remember being so fascinated with that moment that I said, it just lit a fire in me to figure out how to talk to these animals. So that was the drive.
Yeah, and I tell you, when you hit that call and those wingtips turn, and you figure out which one of those in the group you're calling to, and they work just right. I mean, it's why I'm a turkey hunter too. I love that interaction with the animal. I like fooling them. I like that you lose a good percentage of the time at that, and that you can get better at it and increase your chances of winning. But every single time you go in the marsh or in the woods, it's never guaranteed, right? Every bird's different. Every flock of ducks is different, and it's never the same. And that's a draw for a lot of us, Chris. So I feel you. That's Absolutely. Awesome.
Yep. And my dad was obviously kind of my hero, mentor through all this. And he did it for all the right reasons that I see it, and raised me that way. So eating your ducks, hunting them for food, not just for pictures and to show your buddies. And so I miss the majority of that in the culture of duck hunting. It was a lot of ownership and pride in the sport, so.
Well, the fact you said Piro right there tells me a lot. I mean, I have a lot of water I can put big boats in and motors, which I'm not against folks doing. It's just not my thing. I like to hear the marsh. I like to hear the water move.
Absolutely.
I like to hear, the everything wake up, as you're moving into the marsh, as birds start to call, and that slow movement makes so much difference. We have 7. This is just a little aside, but it's kind of similar. Like, I drive my neighborhood almost every morning or evening looking for deer, because we live kind of in an upland area. And then once season comes, duck season, I drive around every day about midday. It's about an hour loop, maybe hour and a half to look for birds. But it's kind of my thing. But the other day I had to clear trails on 70 acres we have permission on to deer hunt nearby. Not even a lease, like literal permission, which is amazing. It's a mile away. But I had to drive my tractor through the neighborhood instead of drive my truck. And it was amazing what I saw. I couldn't hear shit because I had my earplugs in and all that with the tractor driving. But the speed at which I was going was a lot nicer, and I saw things I normally wouldn't see. And I feel like, that's kind of what I always try to go back to. I run a molded plastic, kayak type thing, right? But I have a push-pull 17-foot push paddle called a punt paddle up here. They're called punt boats up this way on the Great Lakes. But I have a punt paddle from Long Point, Lake Erie that I push myself around with. And I always like to feel like it's Puro-ish, but it's not the same, and I totally get that. But yeah. I can feel that your dad was definitely authentic and traditional.
Yeah, we paddled in a fiberglass Puro that, that was one of my, coming into manhood was learning how to fiberglass the bottom of that Puro. We must have done it 10 or 15 times growing up, and I've done it ever since because, the bottom just gets beat up. So if you've ever fiberglassed anything, you know how much fun and painful that can be.
It's wonderful. Yeah, no, I'm with you on that one. So then a little more down the road where the duck call kind of stuff really got cranking. We could hit on you played for Tulane was before duck calls, right?
No, actually duck calls started way early. I shot my first duck. It was a hen wood duck, and she was screaming as she was flying right at me, and I shot her. And I was 7 years old. I shot her with a 20 gauge pump, 870, and I picked her up. And I remember picking her up, and I was like, man, she was yelling at me as she was, flying right at me. And when I saw him blow at those ducks with the mallard tone and I saw him react, like I said earlier, it lit that fire, and everything that he had, I was about to mess it up. Because I wanted to recreate the sound that I kept hearing. And every birthday, every Christmas holiday, anything, I was asking for duck calls. And probably like a lot of kids back then, but instead of figuring out how to blow different duck calls and me adapting to the duck call, I ended up making the duck call adapt to me. So I would modify everything that he had, and he's probably still mad at me for messing up a bunch of his calls. But every call that I got on the market, I'd be drilling on them or I'd be sanding on them to try to get different sounds. And I would go out to refuges and I would record ducks with, he got me a tape recorder, and I would buy VHSs and rent VHSs of people making them at the time. And, I'm thinking like Duck Commander Will Primos back then. There was Buck Gardner that was doing a bunch of videos. This is late 90s. But even before that, everything I could get my hands on, I was trying my best to figure it out. And so I kept listening to competition callers and what they were doing, and then I would listen to real ducks. And there was something different. There was a bunch of differences, obviously, but I wanted the real authentic sound, and I was trying to make this instrument sound as close to them as I could. So that's where I started messing up a lot of calls. And so that's how it started.
Well, so then did you get good at it before football or after football? I want to talk about football for a second.
Yeah. Okay. We'll get there. No, in high school, I was modifying a lot of calls for my buddies. They were like, man, I want to sound like that. And so I was trying to show them what I was doing. But in high school, I was playing baseball and football and trying to figure out that pathway of what I was going to do with life. And I was lucky enough to get a scholarship to go to Tulane, which was in New Orleans, Louisiana. But football season starts pushing into duck season pretty quick right there at the end. Mm-hmm. Football kind of took a front seat to all that. And I remember we had to go to Hawaii Bowl over Christmas, my first year there, as I was a redshirt freshman. And I remember thinking, I'm going to miss duck season. It was fun. Had a good time there, and then went to Canada briefly. Played for Winnipeg Blue Bombers for like 4 or 5 months before they brought in a Canadian punter and sent me back home. So then I had to figure out real life.
And so a lot of punters come into football as soccer players, but you were straight up like punter is, for football alone, right? Like,
Yeah, no, well,
that's all it was.
I was the quarterback, and so it was kind of a double threat, and you didn't know if I was going to throw on fourth down or not. So in high school, and I had a few smaller schools in Mississippi want me to come play football and baseball, but just ended up my right leg was better than my left arm, I guess, and
It's all good.
and football kind of took me to where I was, and then came back and started chasing more ducks. Let me spend more time in the woods.
I love the backstory, Chris, and I think you're where you need to be. Given, I tell you, I picked up the Edison you sent me. It was tuned to you,
Mm-hmm.
and I had to modify it, and it took me about 5 minutes to get it where I needed it, and it was spectacular. So, and I'm not just blowing smoke because Chris is a sponsor. Everybody knows I'm pretty authentic. Like, he wouldn't be a sponsor if his call was crap. So the one thing that Chris and I did was we chatted about stuff, and he goes, well, how much you want to sponsor? And I told him. He's like, oh yeah, I could do that. And I said, okay, I'm going to order a call from you first though. And I remember you saying, oh, I'll send you one. I'm like, no. This is who I am. In good faith, I'm buying one of your calls. And then I will get back to you and say whether we're going to allow you to be a sponsor or not, because we ain't just taking anybody. I mean, we are about, quality info, quality products and stuff like that. So, but it is spectacular. And I do recommend folks have a look at them. I think Chris will convince you throughout this discussion with him as well. Beckman Game Calls has it dialed in. If you want a duck call that is adjustable to your air pressure and sounds like a duck, this is it. I've blown a ton of different calls in my life, but this one is the real deal. Look, we don't endorse just anything. We are only going to put forward a call that works. The Edison by Chris Beckman of Beckman Game Calls, yeah, this beauty sounds like a duck. I only know of one published research paper focused on what makes a duck call sound like a duck. Go look me up, and you will see that colleagues and I have the only paper published in scientific literature about what makes a duck call sound like a duck. For sure, Chris Beckman did his homework, and this call sounds like a duck. This guy knows how to make a duck call, period. But don't just take my word for it. Here's the proof. First, a hen recording, and then the Edison in the big woods of Arkansas. Visit them today at BeckmanGameCalls.com. We had a moment, Chris, that was super fun when we were talking about calls early on. And you're like, yeah, I mean, I found this one study that describes the sound, which types of, double reeds versus single reeds, and which types of woods and stuff sound more like a duck than others. And what Chris did not realize at that time is that I was the advisor for James Callicutt, who's the lead author on that. He's at Mississippi State now with their extension folks. He was doing his master's at that time. And Chris was like, no way. That's your study.
That was totally organic. Like, I had no idea. Yeah. And sure enough, I look at the footnotes and there's Dr. Mike Schumer right there. And I'm like, are you kidding me? No, but that was actually one of the big, when I first launched the Edison, a lot of guys aren't familiar with that study. But it was a comparison between, like you said, the double reed versus single reed, and then different woods, which was really cool. So I love the way y'all did that and used that software for acoustic purposes.
One of the things that came out of that is, I will say that in most folks' hands, having looked at a lot of these data, in most folks' hands, the call makes a difference in whether they sound like a duck or not. But we had one person in that study, and everybody was just random. Like, they just had a number, so I didn't know even who it was. One person in that study, and I blew calls, but I can tell you from blowing a poplar single reed, which we used crappy wood and single reed on purpose, right? Just to see how bad we could make stuff sound. Given my performance with the poplar single reed and the squealing that came out of it when I tried to blow it, there is no way that one person was me. But there was one person that no matter what call you gave them, they sounded like a duck, right? Mm-hmm. Like in a kind of sound analysis framework, you get this like confidence interval of like what a duck sounds like, and that person every single time fell within that confidence interval of what a duck sounds like, no matter what call you gave them. Mm-hmm. And so there are some people out there that are just gifted at this for sure.
Yeah. Well, also practice too. I know people don't think that they can just pick up a call and blow it and then they're going to sound like them. You gotta do a lot of listening and a lot of playing back. Record yourself. I tell everybody, record yourself. I know it's going to sound different blowing each call to your ear when you're blowing, but record yourself on all your different calls and then play back real hens and listen to yourself and make sure you figure out the control first. So a practice goes a long way with that.
Yeah, and I get to the point where I do blow them to make sure I generally sound well. I'm maybe an offender of not doing it enough. But the one thing I love to do is when you blow a call and that hen cuts you off or calls right after you, is to give it right back at her and mimic that. And it always feels really good when you don't sound like a party toy relative to her. I think there's some people that there's got to be, because you hear them in the marsh, right? You hear them in the woods and stuff. Like, there's got to be folks that think they sound fine, and they just can't associate what a hen sounds like and what
it's
they
that
sound like.
It's and I hate to give a plug, but it's that the show The American Idol. When they're so confident when they're going up there and they're like, I sound the best, and then you hear them and it's like cats screaming. So it's. I love the confidence, but
Well, and that's where I have friends that don't even call, and we'll talk a little bit about north versus south kind of calling, maybe too, on ducks. But I have some friends that don't even call; they still shoot ducks. But I always say the one thing to do in the blind is kind of be polite about your calling. If you've been with somebody, I've got a buddy that he and I just cut each other off, like hens cut each other off. Like, we do it on purpose. We call real well together. We were college buddies, and we've hunted on and off for, 25 years probably. And we can hunt now. We're busy, but we hunt together only once a year, I'm guessing. But together we call perfectly fine. But you've got to kind of find that sweet spot with people. Yeah. I'd say don't always be the person that wants to blow the call more than everybody else, so I don't know. What's the overall etiquette, Chris, with that, do you think?
Man, this is just my opinion, but I think you always need someone that's a lead. And I think that if you're filler or background to the lead, that usually takes more art than being the lead, because you got to know when to come in, and not overstep. And you see them practice that and on the stage too, when they do two-man meet competitions and things, they get dock points for walking on each other, and overstepping on each other. But you'll hear hens in the background and live ducks. They're competing to get higher pitched or over that hen that just blew. And so it's all about timing and cadence and knowing, like you said, hunting with a guy for 25 years, you've probably heard every note. He knows how to hit on a duck call. So
yeah, and we both know like when to cut in, and I'm like, he's a little more of the screamer, and I actually probably let him lead most of the time, and then I come in with the cutoff, but it's like a growling, slow kind of cutoff in the background. That's like the hen that's trying to overtop, but then realizes she shouldn't do it type thing. So that's my fun go-to on that. But
no, we just take turns. When you got accomplished callers, it's even worse when you got really good callers in the hole, because everybody wants to blow their call, and you just have to either take turns on each different groups and things like that. So just keep it controlled. Yeah,
my fun one was down in South Carolina, and it was a straight up teal shoot and mottled ducks. And those mottled ducks are so darn smart that once I was down there late in the season, they don't even come near you. And my colleague that was with me was guiding, and he goes, call at those ducks. And I hit the call, and they're coming. And then I realized later on he was just pulling my chain, because they know you're there. They learned everything. The ones that are there now aren't going to get shot the rest of the season unless you go into one of their holes. And the teal aren't reacting to anything. They're just bombing all around on you.
Yeah.
And that's what it was. But anyhow, it was fun. So hey, let's I was going to say right off the bat, but we've dove into a lot of stuff. Are you up for getting into, what is a cut down duck call? And
Absolutely.
why some guys love them and why some guys hate them?
Yeah. So a cut down, and I'll try to give a very generic definition. A cut down is any call by the manufacturer or maker that has been modified or quote unquote cut down, right? So, like I was describing earlier, every call I got my hands on, I was modifying it to fit me, or ruining the call and getting another one. So, guys did that with a lot of different calls, but the most popular that everybody will reference is the old D2 PS Olt. You may be familiar with it. It's a hard rubber. The keyhole being my preference of one to modify or cut. Um, and of course, that call, I think it got its trademark in roughly 1941. So my dad was born in 1947, and he said those calls were cheap, and now they're coveted like you can't find one very cheap at all. I won't say the prices, but just go on eBay and look. And those aren't even modified. So it's funny. I show my dad that, and he just laughs because he had shoe boxes full of them. But that was the kind of starting up and down the Illinois River Valley, all the way down to the Louisiana coast. Everybody had their own spin on how they modified or wanted the calls to sound, and that's kind of how it originated. Now, the benefits of a cut down, and a lot of guys like them, and a lot of guys don't like them, is they're loud, they're aggressive, they're heavy rasp. They don't they do all the work for you. And so when you listen to duck callers a lot, if they've been grown up, if they've been raised on wood calls and J frames, they want to make the call deeper, and so their initial reaction is to grunt or really heavy voice, low notes into the call to make it deeper and raspier. Where you don't do that with a cut down. You blow smooth air in it, and it will do all of that for you. So that was what they figured out a long time ago with the cut down on those PS Olts, and it was when there wasn't many in the woods, it was really effective because if you could overpower your competition, a guy set up 100 yards, 200 yards from you, now you're louder than he is, and so a group of 100 mallards treetop may be more interested in the loudest one in the woods versus the quietest, or drowning him out versus ducks flying in formation. Maybe they heard you because, as we know, sound carries. And most people, they're like, I want a high pitched, really loud call. And I'm like, well, we got to talk about sound for a minute now. Let's talk about wavelengths. And, you listen to a boat, foghorn is not a high pitched sound. There's a reason it's lower bass note, because it carries across water. So it was effective for getting out there. But a lot of guys have, I think it's kind of been muddied now as far as if its effectiveness, simply because a lot of people use them as a tool. And the reference I like to make, Mike, is mud motors versus outboards. A lot of guys down here, they either hate mud motors or they love them. There's places in Louisiana you can't go duck hunt without a mud motor. So it's just another tool in the tool bag, and it's a wild animal. They're going to like what they like on certain days and not like it the next day. So,
Yeah, I tell you, the original one you sent me there, the Groundbreaker, is what you sent me after I got the Edison from you. And I did exactly what you said. I'm used to kind of traditional J frame, and I tried to grunt and growl into it, and I was like, "What?" and what I found, and maybe I'm doing it wrong, and tell me if I am, is that I could make that reed just smash on that tone board and be really, really loud, but I also ran out of breath. Like I felt like I was pushing it. It'll do it, but I felt like I was pushing it pretty hard to do it. Is that a thing, or am I doing it wrong?
No, I know that's very common in the cut down world. They think it takes too much air or it's harder to blow. And you'll hear Jim Ronquest and other guys, Jim's the one that made the Mondo, which is it kind of brought life back into the whole cut down world when they launched that from RT. But he's real quick to say, a good cut down gives you, finesse on the bottom. And a lot of that has to do with your air presentation in the call, but, not to nerd out too much with this, but you've got a 14 mil reed versus a 10 mil reed in an Arkansas style J frame. And so when you think of that material, it's got a lot more backbone in the 14 and the thicker reed, right?
Mhm.
So it's going to vibrate or be heavier and hit harder, cause more sound. But it's going to take, depending on how the cut down is set up, you're able to push that without breaking it over. Where if you push a single reed, it may squeal out on you,
Mhm.
close your throat or tight lipped. But I recommend the guys always. There's a bunch of videos out there now on how to present your air in the cut downs, and I highly recommend guys to watch it because it's a different air than what you're accustomed to.
Yeah, my problem is I'm that stubborn guy. I'm like the guy that opens the box to whatever, the new baby crib, and never reads the directions. Like, yo, you said you got like a QR code and like, here, go to my videos and look at all this stuff. And I was like, nah, I'm just going to blow this thing.
Yeah.
So, but I did go look at them and they are spectacular. So I do recommend when folks pick up one of Chris's duck calls that you do actually watch the videos because they're going to help you a lot.
And honestly, Mike, I made this as an adjustable cut down so guys can push that reed back and make it a lot easier to run. It'll lose those cut down features of those heavy rasp sounds, but I mean, I've got videos of me doing 23 note eyeballs on a cut down, which, like you just said, you feel like you run out of air, but that's because that reed and that tone board's a lot longer than in your typical J frame. So
Yeah.
you can adjust that reed to fit your air presentation.
Well, they're both going with me this year. I've just been running a pretty generic kind of J frame that a buddy of mine turns acrylic,
Yeah.
and I'm basically running the Edison and the Groundbreaker this year, and I'm gonna make I mean, the Edison, no problem, not a bit of problem there running that thing at all. But I'm gonna make myself learn the cut down, the Groundbreaker, and I'm gonna learn how to switch back and forth between them.
Yeah.
Make my brain do that. I think that's going to be fun. I'm going to take that as a challenge. So,
Yeah.
but I think the difference too, and when we started talking cut downs and calls and such, I was a little embarrassed. I'm like, I don't know this stuff. And I've been in the duck world for a fairly long time, right? And even was part of that duck call study. Single reeds, double reeds, different types of woods, know how to mispronounce Kokoboa and all that jazz. But, didn't really know about it, and I think it really stems from the fact that up north these ducks tend to respond a little more easily to calls, and it's not like there's not competition. I tell you, in the marsh I'm in, if somebody else is working a group, I watch them. I don't touch swing ducks if they start to move away from them, right? I can see that. I'll call at them then, right? I give everybody space and then work birds. So there's like a slight bit of competition, but it's not like what y'all run into where you're kind of, I think, competing for ducks a little bit more on WMAs and such. And so I think that folks have really tried to tune in. They're calling a little bit better. I think that you have to be good. If you don't sound like a duck, and lots of times you're not going to shoot birds unless you're just in one of those special places on the X, right? So I think there's a big difference there for sure between what y'all do and what we have. I mean, when I just said I've got friends that shoot, I mean, I don't know, 7,500 ducks a year that don't even own a call.
Nah.
Right. Like,
It'd be hard to do down here.
What's the point of that? I don't shoot turkeys that don't gobble at me. I ain't shooting ducks I'm not calling at.
Yeah.
The Farmland Group is your one-stop shop for real estate brokerage, consulting, management, lending, and appraisal across Arkansas, Mississippi, Missouri, Louisiana, Georgia, Tennessee, and growing. Contact them today at farmlg.com. Hey, I'm telling you, do not hesitate because these folks are busy buying, selling, and providing consulting and management strategies that build value into your portfolio on your land. So get in the queue today. Get on their radar. Get on their books. Man, y'all won't be disappointed. Contact the Farmland Group today at farmlg.com. That's farmlg.com.
Covered the cut down. Let's switch gears a bit, if you're good with that. How have your seasons been? Reasonable. I mean, I hear a lot of complaining. You're from Louisiana.
Yep. I frequent Arkansas quite a bit during the season. So I've my main three states I've hunted my entire life is Louisiana, Mississippi, Arkansas. So I've been right there. And honestly, the last few years have been some of the best I've had. Not necessarily in terms of how many ducks I've seen in the sky every day in and day out, obviously with the BPOP being where it's at. But, as far as the ducks working, and I mean, obviously I've been doing this for quite a while, I can make a good educated guess on where I can have the best opportunity for success. But yeah, it's been going pretty well.
Well, and that's kind of where I'm at too, Chris, is like, I'm going less and I'm shooting more. And and our loyal listeners know that, right? And it's kind of a little bit of a shameless plug for the podcast and the Weather Severity Index. But the reality is that I just don't go when I'm not going to kill birds. And I don't go to dumb places like I used to, right? I don't wander around. I've got like the landscape figured out. There's a little people component that gets in my way sometimes on public land where somebody's in a spot that I want to be in, and so I get a day or two here and there during the season, maybe up to 5, where I kind of get nudged out of spots I want to be and have to go to like a second or third fiddle, type place. But increasingly, I've been doing pretty well, even what I would say are on relatively bad flight years, which I think you're admitting that we've had, right? Like, it's not like there've been darkened skies with ducks. I think that's a known fact right now.
At least down here in the South. And I mean, I know you've done a great job of explaining to guys, look, these are the X factors, and it's a combination of all of them. It's not just one, so everybody blaming weather, everybody blaming the amount of ducks. It's everything combined. Losing habitat. I mean, there's a lot, like you've discussed ad nauseum, I know. But
I can talk about it more if you want, believe me.
No, but I agree with all of those, and I'm glad you back it by science and data, so guys don't, lose focus and go down rabbit holes, and then, anger builds, and now you're mad at other duck hunters. So I just don't think that's healthy for the sport at all. But I do see, what was it, 2017? We have more ducks on the landscape than we ever had.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, it was 8 years ago.
Yeah.
So we've been here before. We've been less. The BPOP's been less than this, and they come back. I know there's a lot of X factors that we may not have had, but 8 years ago is not that long in the grand scheme of things. So yeah, I hope, cross my fingers, it gets better and better each year, and we're able to save as much habitat as we can.
I'll tell you this, it's a real nice comment, Chris. I still enjoy duck hunting.
Absolutely.
And I think that's got to be the takeaway from this, is that it's going to ebb and flow. I mean, I remember when I was in Mississippi, 2008 to 2010, and that was after the low years of 2005 to 2008, and everybody was screaming that the sky was falling. And there were a lot of years between when I left Mississippi, we went to Michigan. My wife worked for DU, then she moved over to New York. I worked in Ontario, and I was kind of back and forth between Ontario and New York till we bought our house, and I got this full-time gig here, where we could actually live in the same country, let alone state. But I kept my finger on all that stuff and was kind of fiddling around with the duck migration forecast thing. But the world was I was in that social media world. I was still there. It was pretty quiet for a very long time. And now recently the kerfuffle's kicked up, and I get it. People are frustrated, but damn it, ducks still exist, and duck hunting is still great. And I don't know, when it's at its low end, I kind of maybe enjoy it more. My expectations are lower. I'll shoot till 9 o'clock, and if I got 3 or 4 ducks, I'll just go home. Like, I'm not going to beat them to death till noon, right? And it's fine. I don't see the urgency, I think, that people are, screaming about in general. But that's me. I mean, I get it that if you're a mallard purist and mallards are what you run on, that's pretty bad right now for folks in the South. The numbers are low, and the birds are either not making it there, or they're sitting. They're big ducks that can sit stuff out too, so they're just hanging out. Right? They're hard to get at. So
yeah, No, but what like I was gonna say, we've been here. If you don't remember, I was a part of those chat communities back in the day before social media was as rampant as it is now. And everybody, when the spinners came out, oh my gosh, it was like we're going to decimate the population. It was 2005 and we were on a downhill trend. And it's hilarious about what 2006 and 7, you just see us make a massive bull run on the B-pop to 2017, where it just kept climbing and kept climbing. So all the doubters and everybody, the fear mongers back then, they disappeared, as the ducks started coming back. So I'm hoping that we can have that again.
Well, and that's been my complaint, and this is kind of a continual comment on the podcast, is that I just don't want more regulations on what we do. Right?
No.
Like the free there's enough of that already, and the freedom to go when you want and hunt where you want, as long as it's not hurting the duck population, is what makes it enjoyable to me.
Absolutely.
That wide open landscape for other things for me, like deer hunting and turkey hunting, are not as much there, right? They are much more restricted, I feel. Public water's decent. WMAs are relatively large in lots of areas like the South. Mm-hmm. And so, not removing restrictions, but I don't think adding any more to this whole entire endeavor of duck hunting is helpful to us. I don't know. I kind of have always been a fan of like the splash limit. I mean, I do like shooting 6 ducks. 3 feels a little stingy. You've heard the what is that, Hunter's Choice thing in Nebraska and elsewhere. Oh, you can pick. You can either shoot 6 ducks and live by the restrictions, or you can shoot 3 and it doesn't matter what you shoot.
Oh,
it's a splash limit. Yeah,
I haven't heard of that.
Yeah, I'd take 4. I draw the line at 4 though, because 3 feels like it's a half limit.
He's like, man, 4, I did a lot of work to get out here.
Right, but 4, like I could go home with 4. Like,
yeah.
That's my thing. But for new hunters, some of the studies show that it removes the barrier of that regulation of bag limits, and so people take that to get into hunting. Or if you just go one time with a buddy and you don't want to have to worry about what you're shooting, you just grab that 3 bird limit and take them, and you can shoot your 6 and watch them shoot their 3. So
unique. I have not heard that, but
it's a fun one. It's a fun one.
Good.
How many days have you had empty skies over the duck blind? Your property can be more with Wildlife Strategies. It is no secret that hiring a consultant, an expert in managing water, woods, and fields, an expert in duck food, an expert in hunting pressure management, hiring a consultant yields better habitat for the critters you chase. Less empty skies, more quality days of field, more smiles for miles with family and friends. If that's your game and goal, contact Ryan Delaney at ryan@farmlg.com for a site visit. And hey, here's the deal. I'm filled up for summer 2025 with clients up north, but if our northern friends have a property in need of some love, contact me at drmike@foulweather.co for a summer 2026 site visit.
So on to talking about regulations. Do you want to? Y'all can't see this, but Chris and I are on video here. He's kind of nodding his head.
Know where this is going.
Chris and I don't agree on everything, but I'm an advocate for draw hunts in the appropriate places. And in my script, I put appropriate places, and Chris can attest to this in really bold letters. This is a fun one, and Chris and I go back and forth on it, and I certainly see all sides of the story. I say, I don't know, should there never be a draw hunt? Some would say yes, but I think the evidence is clear that a lot of hunters are asking for a draw hunt. And you don't even know you're asking for it as a hunter. But when you answer to surveys, you don't want overcrowding. You want to see ducks, and you want the opportunity to shoot at ducks. Of course, we can't help you hit them at all, right? But that's what we're hearing over and over again. And also, people don't like to drive more than an hour to hunt in the morning. So the solution to manage pressure for these crowds, so they don't exist, is to manage the hunt and put these places, all over every state in strategic locations, so nobody has to drive far. But Chris's hackles are up on this one already, I can tell. So, Chris, digging a bit into that discussion we've had about draw hunts for us and why you're a naysayer to what I just said.
Well, I am not a fan of draw hunts, and this is timely because we just had federally a national wildlife refuge in Arkansas just had small parcels that were designated as draw hunts. And I have looked at it objectively and see your point of view as far as when there's nowhere else to go, you got to regulate the volume of pressure in those areas. But something in the South that we have it's a gift, to be honest, is we have a lot of public land. And when I say a lot, I mean I could go in one boat launch and go 20 miles either way in my boat, and I have access to all that public land. And not to mention, a duck has refuges on the other side of the private land, off of the public land. So ducks have places to go if they're overpressured. And man, Mike, I don't want to get on my soapbox, but
Oh, you should.
But I am not a fan of that everybody gets a trophy mentality. I think there is a lot of satisfaction in an ownership and pride into doing something that takes work. And when it takes work to kill a 150-inch deer, that deer goes on your wall. Not everybody goes out and shoots a 150-inch deer. And I think finding ducks and shooting them consistently, it takes a lot of work. And I don't want to discount the guys that don't have as much time as maybe I do or you do to go hunt. But I think there are things already set up in place to help guys that don't like that. The pressure was there, Mike, when I was a kid. And I think a lot of my buddies in the South, our goal was to buy land and cultivate it for ducks. That was my goal at 15 years old because I was like, there's a lot of people. That was 1998. There's a lot of people everywhere. And we killed 1 million mallards in the state of Arkansas in 99. I mean, we're killing 350,000 now. I know the parameters have changed with Onyx and social media and kind of herd mentality of moving left and right and where the ducks are. It spreads like wildfire, where back then maybe the boat ramp went from 10 trucks to 20 trucks. Now it goes from 10 trucks to 60 ducks. But I mean, I still hunt public land, and it's still, the pressure's always going to be there unless you take it to draw systems. And then a part of me, and this is my opinion, but part of me dies inside, right? The passion. I'm not there to shoot skeet. I'm not there to dove hunt. I'm there to chase the animal. And the more you take the hunt away from me and it becomes more of a duck shoot instead of a duck hunt, then for me personally, I don't want it to go that route. At least because of the opportunities. And I told you before we got on, I did a Google search of where they put these draw systems in place, and you can drive 30 minutes in a radius around where they've got these draws, and you've got tons of boat launches other guys can go. And that's what I did when I was younger. I spread out. I realized there was too much pressure here, so I may not see as many ducks, as where the crowd is, but I still had opportunity to shoot ducks at less populated places. So.
Yeah, and so one of the things that you really enlightened me about was that, 20-mile boat run, right?
Yep.
And we have that here on the Finger Lakes. But our wetland areas in general, like our biggest wetland we have is 1,000 acres that is public, and it's on the refuge. It's hunted 3 days a week till noon. Mm-hmm. And our nearby state land is just wide open, right? And I've talked with you about this. We got like one 90-acre marsh that consistently has like 5,000 pintails in opening day, and there's 5 parties on it, which to me is an absurd density of people. And they bang away at them, and by Sunday afternoon, those ducks are gone and they never come back. And if you just unload the waterfowl hunting community on everything out here, it's toast. It's toast. It's gone. And then all the birds are just on the refuge areas where you can't hunt, and it's toast. We don't have the volume of birds. we don't have those giant areas you can run. And we've got a lot of water in New York, but we got a lot of crappy water that doesn't have any duck food. And we also have a lot of, urban areas, and we don't have as many ducks. And where I get to from the draw system is thinking about the growth potentially of the waterfowl hunting community too. And where I really was well introduced to the draw system was in Missouri. And I think they're kind of the model of it in managing it really, really well. And it was kind of a, shooting ducks in a barrel type thing to some extent. You still had to work the call and work birds in. You still had to know what you were doing. But it introduced, I think, a lot of people to duck hunting, and duck hunter numbers in the state of Missouri increased during that period when they were bringing all those conservation areas online and managing them really well. I think kind of they've moved away from that. A lot of them started to have really bad flood issues along the Missouri and such too. I kind of give them a little bit of space there. I know people are pissed about it, abandoning some of those spots, but just the cost to maintain that infrastructure was getting exorbitant. But what happened too from that, Chris, was that, once guys saw what good duck habitat looked like, managed wetlands, they were buying land around those. And like, the area of the waterfowl conservation area in Missouri, the effective area, once folks got leases and then bought land around it, I mean, I think those places, the hunter numbers in the area and those places grew like tenfold. Mm-hmm. So it really added a lot of habitat on the landscape for ducks, possibly to the detriment of Arkansas, Louisiana, and Mississippi, right? We know that because, that, to some extent, I mean, that all that stuff had been drained so badly that Missouri, to a large extent, was a flyover state for a very long time for birds. But the draw system, I think, kind of brought that out. So that's kind of been like where I see the benefit, and you and I have talked about that. Like, in no way does it make sense on a giant area where you can go anywhere and really be a hunter. But if it's a place where hunters are just going to overrun it, and it's no longer good for the ducks, and it's no longer good for the hunters, then there's some space there for the draw hunt, I think.
Yeah. I can definitely see that side of it. And what I was saying earlier about the guys that want to get into the sport, I completely understand where you're coming from, especially in siloed areas that don't have the opportunity to spread out and get other places, whether you like it or not. At least you have the opportunity to go somewhere else where other guys don't. And luckily, I'll tell this to any public guy, the private guys are probably the large reason why we get to see the ducks that we do on public land, because so many have turned their land or agricultural land into duck habitat, or at least sections of it, so it can winter waterfowl. So that's the benefit in Arkansas and Louisiana and Mississippi too, is they pride themselves in holding the ducks, and mm-hmm. it only helps. That saying, high tide raises all ships, right? And so if you've got that many private land guys holding that many ducks, they're going to get out, they're going to fly around and sample at different areas, and that's why they still sample the public land with 80 trucks, in the parking lot.
Yeah, and that's why y'all still shoot a lot of ducks in winter. A lot of ducks in that part of the world is you got more water and you got more space for them than a lot of parts of this planet. So yeah, I'd say keep it up on the public and the private end of it, and keep being passionate people. But I don't know, like I wrote on the script here, I'm not planning on winning any argument here with you, Chris, about draw hunts.
No, me either. We're not. Just my opinions of an old duck hunter. That's it. I'll say old.
Yeah, that's funny. I think it's a great conversation. I think we continue to need to have students. I did the Young Waterfowl Professional Series this summer. A lot of those kids are hunters. I think we really need to continue to train those hunter conservationists in the waterfowl kind of research applied community, so that when those folks go work at wildlife management areas or for state agencies or federal agencies, that they can make good decisions about when a draw is needed and when it is not. And I think I'll leave it there. Yeah. I think that's kind of the overall comment, is because there is a time and place for it. You've really opened my eyes, certainly, to where it's not needed. I always knew it wasn't needed everywhere, because I wouldn't ever want it every place anyway. But my comment is it's like a gateway drug for a lot of people to duck hunting. And I'm one that always says, bring more people in. I'd rather have more duck hunters. We don't want less of us, right? I just want to make sure somehow we resolve any quote unquote conflict we have and make sure everybody has a quality experience while continuing to add people. And some of that might be, managing some areas as well. So anyway, any final comments on that, Chris?
I think we can agree to disagree on a bunch, and we're still friends at the end of the day. So
that's solid. Yeah, that's solid. So what's up for the coming duck season? Anything new? Anything you want to change to make your experience better? Magically wave your wand and make 10 million mallards would be fantastic.
Yes. As far as the new front, I've got a few prototypes I'm going to be testing out this year, seeing how the ducks like them, and we'll just maybe some more innovations with the call line. But as far as things I want to change, better experience, man, I always go back to the culture of duck hunting. I mean, I've got a great example where I was off, the White River, and I was staying in a hotel by myself, and there was a guy that wasn't having much luck, and I had found some ducks, and I invited him to go with me the next day. And I don't know if guys are doing that. I just hope more guys realize that we're all on the same team here, and being mad at each other and, going after each other, saying you're the reason I'm not killing ducks is maybe hunt together and see they love it just as much as you do, and that's what I found. Sometimes it's better to join forces, and you'll be more successful doing that. I promise. So that's what I love. But that's going to be that's going to be a tall order.
I love it. I don't see us going there anytime soon. I think there's going to be that divisiveness and competitiveness in duck hunting. There always is, but man, I don't know. If you're in the line, just talk to dudes. Like they're decent people. They're duck hunters, right? We're all part of this big, Duck Country USA thing. And it's, I don't want to be all kumbaya, but we probably should be more than we are, is kind of always where I'm at,
Yeah.
I got some really good hate mail recently from people in Facebook Messenger, which I'm going to unveil 2 episodes from now. So that'll be fun. Oh, I just take it tongue in cheek. I don't respond to stuff. I'll tell listeners, like, if you post a just garbage comment on our social media page, I'm just going to hide it. So if you don't see any response from it and it still says there's a comment there, it's probably just nobody can look at it because I'm just not going to entertain it. I at some point I'm not going to, I've actually given up debating because it kind of goes nowhere. And so we'll just focus on it through the podcast. And if you send me hate mail, I'll just respond to it here. And then you can send me more hate mail. I can respond to it again, but it's just not worth the time most of the time. I mean, we're just shooting straight, Chris, you know that, and trying to give folks the facts.
I mean, I only advertise on one podcast, and there's a reason for that. I mean, I saw what you do, and you back a lot of your information up with data, and a lot of guys on Facebook, social media can't do that. So, if you have the data to prove your point, then by all means, I'm all ears. But that's honestly why I really enjoy your content. It's because you're backing it up by saying, guys, these are the facts. I'm not trying to convince you of anything. This is the fact.
Yeah, and I appreciate it. I mean, Ethan Dittmer's, his episode that came out, he's got tagged mallards in Southeast Arkansas, and that was last week's episode. And if folks didn't go see that, that's just really good stuff. And it just continues to reiterate the weather severity index for mallards now has basically been run 4 times with 4 different data sets and told us the same exact thing every single time.
Wow.
So yeah, and nobody does that. Most people in science just do one thing once and call it like the ultimate answer. And what science is supposed to be is this process where you continually test the same thing over and over to make sure it's actually the right, and once you're basically trying to discount yourself is what you're trying to do. And if you can't do that, then you don't really prove something, but you have a body of evidence that says this is probably a real thing that's going on. So that's pretty cool stuff. So if you haven't seen Ethan Dittmer's, it's on YouTube too. So try to go have a look at that, because there's really cool graphics from a presentation that we actually share of like his ducks moving into Arkansas and Louisiana and Oklahoma. So that's up on YouTube now. All right. Oh my goodness. The bee pop's coming out soon. I reached out to John Devney of Delta Waterfowl, and he said probably early September that the bee pop results are going to be out, which is maybe like 2 weeks later than normal.
Yeah.
Which is fine with me, because I'm going to be in Sweden starting, when this comes out, I'm in Sweden. So I didn't want to have to try to record a bonus episode in Sweden and get it uploaded. So hopefully I'll be back on U.S. soil to get that done. But do you have any expectations from what you've heard about prairie conditions? And I'm kind of chuckling to Chris here because I can't believe this is going to be a rosy comment. But
No, I mean, the only thing I have to go on is the pilot biologist notes I read, when they flew. And I know we got water after they ran, after they counted, which is tough. But I hope that they were able to re-nest, and, even though we may not see them in the numbers this year, we can get them next year. But I'm fingers crossed we come in about the same as what we did last year. So that's kind of where my guess is for now.
yeah, I think we're going to be down. I can't remember which episode I did it on. I actually put out a prediction. I think I said we're going to be down 10% on mallards and 15% on ponds, or vice versa, or something like that.
Would
But
that
it's
put us around 6 million? Because we're at what, 6.6?
6.6, 6.5. Yeah. It still keeps us in a liberal season. Oh, it's in the AHM. It's in the AHM Talk podcast where I cover, what the matrix looks like and that stuff. So, yeah. And if it drops, I mean, people are going to freak out and call for closed seasons, et cetera, but I don't want to get into it. So what I want to do is quickly let our listeners that Beckman Game Calls and the Foul Weather Podcast have some, I'd say, cool, I guess we'd call them ideas in the works for collaboration for this fall. And Chris is going to be back with us in early fall for the unveiling of that collaborative effort. So we'll just leave that teaser out there for now. But we've been talking about it for a while. The unveiling is going to be fun, and we'll have Chris back on for a discussion about that stuff. What about, you said your dad, Piro, traditional, it was about the experience, but it was also about utility. So what's the go-to Chris Beckman duck recipe 101? What do you got?
Man, everybody always defaults to the duck roll-ups, where you wrap them in bacon. But I went and got a grinder a few years back. And so fortunate enough to have a freezer full of ducks, I got into grinding the meat, making hamburgers, taco meat, and just mixing it with all kinds of stuff. Because I've cooked them my whole life, in the steak style medallion, throw them on the grill with a breast. And so I really, really have enjoyed that. I'll mix some, bacon or different types of fat in there with it to make it a little, because they're pretty lean. But yeah, different sauces. That's kind of been my go-to over the last few years. I don't know. You got one?
Well, you're going to have to come up here and see what we got. We'll get you into some fat ducks maybe before your ducks show up. I mean, our ducks get fat before they go south. And some of your birds do really fatten up nice, right?
They do.
Some of them, just sit it out and get lean too throughout the winter. But these corn-fed mallards and black ducks up here, whole on the grill, plucked whole on the grill. And it's so easy. It's like rub them in canola oil. Roll them in whatever dry rub you want. I'm a big fan of Tony's. Tony Satchery. However you want to say it, cha-cha, whatever you like. Or just salt and pepper. But I'm a big fan of just covering it up with Tony's and then there's a specific way to put it on. And this is charcoal. Good charcoal in one of the big green egg or the big Weber. And roast them like that. And you set your clock to it. And then you stick a fork in it. And if there's a little pause before the blood comes out, it's done. If the blood shoots right out, you got about a minute more. But if you've done your heat right and everything, it should be 22 minutes on the dot, where you push the fork in and the blood has like a pause before it comes out. Pull it off, you rest it for about 10 minutes to reabsorb. And it's technically all blood, you know that? Like it's like the iron stuff that gives the red color. It's technically not blood. People get grossed out by it, but man, I eat a lot of red looking duck for sure.
Yeah. And I was gonna say, I think the biggest mistake people make cooking ducks is they cook them too long. They think it's too gamey or something, and then they end up just burning it.
Yeah, it gets
Rarer
worse.
the better.
It gets worse with time. Let's go
Yes,
with
it
that.
does.
Yeah. But yeah, we would. I'm gonna try to swing down and hunt with you this year, and you've got an open invite up here for. You showed me a trophy black duck on your wall, and we have black duck years and we have years we don't have them, but we would do our best to get you on some birds and get you on some diving ducks maybe. So
Yeah, black ducks are coveted down here. We don't see many. I've
yeah,
only shot a handful of them in my lifetime. So
great.
And they're always flying with a group of mallards. They don't come in big groups like you were describing.
Yeah, we get them. You got to be careful first thing in the morning. They fly earlier than the mallards, and if you just light into a flock of 50 or something, you might dump way too many black ducks all at once if you do that. So I tend to hunt. I do gentleman's hours, as I've said. I tend to hunt later anyway, but lots of times I'll wait. I won't even shoot for that first half hour anyway. I'll let other people do their business and then pick my shots later. So
yeah,
but. Chris, you've been lucky episode number 99 of the Foul Weather Podcast. Next week is episode 100, and we're going to provide our first insights into fall and winter weather that goes kind of into affecting how many ducks you might see over your blind. And then episode 101, we're going to provide reflection on the past 2 years of producing this quality information. Chris has been talking about duck migration for all our great friends across duck country USA. But I want to give Chris the last chance. Any final comments? We're going to have you read the tagline to go out because I know you listen to the podcast every single week. But any other tidbits for our listeners about Beckman game calls and how to reach you, really? Like, let's go with that. Like, where do folks find you? Where do folks get a call?
Yeah, I have a website, beckmangamecalls.com. I also have Facebook, Instagram, even TikTok now. So you can find me on all those platforms. And I've done a few of the podcasts as well. So if you any questions, any concerns, reach out to me anytime.
And you've got one really good one. What would folks have to search to hear your call and then the hen mallard call?
I have that on my website. You can check out the tutorials of how I show how my calls work and how to adjust for the caller. But I have sound files of both of them on there as well.
And that's in our commercial for y'all each week on the podcast as well. So folks, go check out Beckman Game Calls. I really appreciate you, Chris, and everything you do for duck hunting and all the great people across duck country USA. And Chris, go ahead and send us off.
I'm going to put a little of my spin on it. Here we go. Thanks for listening. And as always, may your skies be filled and shoot straight, fellas.